Welcome, everyone. We want to welcome you to your session, Maintaining Student Engagement During Distance Learning. And throughout this session, you are going to experience ready to use strategies that you can implement in your day to day instruction during distance learning. And so we want to start with our welcome screen, or some people call it a waiting screen. And it's just a helpful way to start your virtual meetings or your synchronous meetings by presenting just some basic information to students. For today's purpose, for our session, we have actually your Bitly link. So if you can see on the left-hand corner, you could go ahead and open up a separate browser with the Bitly link, which you'll have access to the slide deck for today's presentation. We've included a funny of the day, and I'll go ahead and read it out loud. It's a library, honey, kind of an early version of the World Wide Web. So, you can easily include GIFs or any type of funny visuals to spark the interest of your students. You could also have a timer for them, so that they know that your session will begin in X amount of minutes. And for today, we also have a visual of the mic. So go ahead and turn in your mic and chat with your friends before class starts. So we have 1 minute to begin. So we'll give you some time to access the slide deck.
And while you're accessing the slide deck, I just wanted to let you know that a lot of teachers who use this, it's a good way to get students to already have that microphone on and already have their camera on. And so once school is started, once class is started, that microphone and that camera are already on, and you don't even have to worry about it.
All right, well, let's get started. So again, today's session, or your session, is maintaining student engagement during distance learning. My name is Aurora Hall. I'm an inclusion training specialist with the Inclusion Collaborative, which is part of the Santa Clara County Office of Ed. And my experience has been in the special education field. I was a special education teacher, program specialist, and administrator.
And I am Sherry Palladino. I am also an inclusion training specialist. I have been a teacher for many, many years, uh, um, and then also an inclusion teacher as well. So we're going to look at this first slide, and these things might sound familiar to you. I'm sure you've heard some of these things coming out of your Zoom calls with your students, or Google Hangouts, or whatever you do with your students. So this is a new normal for all of us, right? We need adjustment time. Your students need adjustment time. But we also believe that if we pay attention to the social and emotional needs and some creative planning, we can engage all of our students in successful distance learning.
So we wanted to begin with our learning goal for today's session. And so we are really hoping that you are able to increase your understanding of strategies to maintain student engagement. I think that all educators already have a plethora of strategies that they're currently utilizing. And so we simply want to increase your understanding of those strategies. So, as I mentioned earlier during the presentation, during this session, you're going to experience practical strategies that you could already implement tomorrow during distance learning. And so one of those are mind warm ups. And so mind warm ups are essentially just quick breaks that help your students refocus so that they can return to work feeling centered and ready to learn. So at the I've hyperlinked an article that includes 8 brain warm up exercises for mental clarity in the morning. So, things from finding a noun for each letter of the alphabet to having students simply listen to classical music while you begin your morning meeting is an excellent way to help them refocus. And so for today's purpose, we have hyperlinked a Padlet that we are hoping that you all can participate in. So if you do have a copy of the bit.ly, if you click on the Padlet link right here, it'll take you to a Padlet, which is another great way to collect data and to have your students collaborate and share their ideas and thoughts. So for today, we're hoping that you can click on the Padlet and just name a behavior that begins with the first letter of your name. Again, this is an example of a brain warm up. So we'll give you maybe a minute to do that, but as you're doing it, we'll continue with the second slide. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat the directions one more time. So if you can click on slide 6 and click on the Padlet link, it'll take you to a Padlet where we are hoping you could name a behavior that begins with the first letter of your name. And obviously, we're discussing a behavior, a student behavior, right? What our students are exhibiting during distance learning. You could also either type, record, or share a picture of that behavior by just clicking on the Padlet. I'll show you what the Padlet will look like. As you can see, we have already some people that have added them. So you just click on the plus sign over here. It'll open up a Post-it and you can either type it, you can put a link, an image, or any of these wonderful options. And so once again, it's important to give our students options and how they respond, because that's how we are able to include all of our students and make our activities accessible to all of our learners. And so for today, we want to ensure that we don't lose any valuable learning time. And so this session will focus on strategies to increase your classroom participation while learning remotely. But we also want to note that many of the strategies are going to be examples of universal design for learning. And so universal design for learning is about identifying those barriers and designing your instruction in order to eliminate them. And UDL is a way of thinking about teaching and learning that helps give all students an equal opportunity to succeed. And really, this approach offers flexibility in the way students access your material and in the way they engage with it and in the way they show what they know. And so, again, most of these strategies will be focused around universal design for learning.
And like Aurora said, you cannot change the students, but you can change the environment. So looking at our first strategy is teaching students appropriate online expectations and how to collaborate before expecting success. So I wanted to point out real quick, commonsense.org. If you're not familiar with that website, it's a leading nonprofit organization that really strives to help families have access, and students, parents, teachers even, to safe media, quality media, and knowledge on technology. And what I love about this is that teachers, this is a free website for you. You can sign up, and there are so many already made lesson plans on how to work with your students, from the little ones all the way up to the older ones. And now more than ever, students really need to learn digital citizenship skills. So they need media literacy. They need to be able to recognize and respond to cyberbullying and even understand how their media habits affect them. I've put 2 videos on here for you to explore at a later time, but these are samples of some introductory videos to having balance in media, especially right now. So there's a video for younger kids, there's a video for older kids. It really reaches the wide span of student learning. And so really making sure that in your classroom, you are addressing social media, right? You're establishing norms of your classroom. You're a part of that process. So these are all very important in order to expect success in your classroom.
So the first thing we want to discuss is relationships, right? And building that sense of community and rapport with your students and families is going to be crucial in making sure that distance learning is effective and that all students are experiencing success. So we have a video here of educators that are, created just small and short videos to send to all of their students and in a way to say good morning.
Good morning, boys and girls.
Good morning, small humans. It is, gosh, what day is it? Let me check.
Just wanted to say good morning. Let you guys know again that we really miss y'all.
Can you give me an elbow greeting? Good morning, Elliot.
I'm excited to see you. It's kind of cold, and I'm outside because I need fresh air.
I'm sporting my soon-to-be 6-year-old daughter's Frozen headphones.
I miss seeing your happy faces today. I hope that you're enjoying a day that you get to stay at home and use your computer to do school.
I know things have been a little like a roller coaster ride with ups and downs lately.
I know that this is not like regular school, right?
Feel free to do school in your jammies, I guess. That's basically the whole advantage to e-learning.
It's PJ Day, so I'm in my jammies. I hope you are too.
And with me today is Thomas O'Malley.
Today we have some really fun and exciting activities for you. Isn't that right, Spike?
Some of our friends from the classroom also really miss you guys. So, let me show you. Yep, our reading buddies.
Oh, she's a little sad because she misses you. But you know what, Didi, they're gonna come back soon. I promise you.
I miss nobody groaning at my puns.
I miss you all. I miss every single one of you.
This has been a lot. This is a whole new process for us.
This is a brand new way of teaching for me, and I'm sure that this is a brand new way of learning for you. So we're going to be very patient with each other.
Take care of yourselves. Please, 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 I cannot stress enough.
You are wonderful, and I can't wait to see you again.
Hopefully you guys are staying busy, staying active. Make sure you get some exercise.
I'll see you in a bit. Take care.
So it's so important to be able to reach out to students and show them your authentic self. And so this is one way you're able to do that or accomplish that. But we really want to stimulate our students' interest and motivation and persistence in learning. So you could do things such as hosting a small or large online chat with students using, platforms like Zoom or Canvas or Google Hangouts, whatever platform you're using. You can provide prompts to students ahead of time, especially if you're going to be discussing academic content. But if you just want to discuss something so that students can connect and speak to their peers, you don't have to do that. So you could also position the online chats as quick check-ins or really just informal time for students to connect. And students can also submit ideas about what they'd like to chat with their peers about. And so that's just a way to build those relationships, you with your students, but also peer-to-peer relationships, which I'm sure a lot of the students are, just missing that so much.
So using movement and games to get kids focused. So total physical response, that's a method of teaching language or vocabulary concepts by using physical movement to react to verbal input. The purpose of TPR is to create a brain link between speech and action to boost language and vocabulary learning. So it's really important that teachers incorporate some kind of motion, movement, stretch, exercise into learning at all age levels, not just little ones, older ones too, whether it's stretching or dancing or any activity that has some kind of movements. Students not only benefit from the fun, but from the physiological effect as well. So students are inspired to stretch and dance and twist and shout out. That creates blood flow through the body, especially to the brain. So that cognitive enhancing rush of blood and nutrients actually revitalizes their vascular system and improves clarity and energy levels and really helps them to remain focused. So looking at different physical activities, it's like I said, it's important to break up your day with those activities. So mixing activities, not only will it break up instructional time, but it's going to help the students think about content in a different way, especially if you can link a physical activity with the content that you're teaching. For example, on here we have one of the physical activities is called What's Your Name? This is an example of something that we have found, a resource online that we've found, but we created a flip grid for students to answer to. And if you're not familiar with a flip grid, that's a way for students to answer using a video, right? A lot of kids like to video themselves. You see that a lot, right? The whole selfie movement. But Flipgrid is a way for them to show themselves doing talking about something or doing an activity. So for this particular one, this is a student, a middle school student, doing an exercise that has to do with her name, which is part of her PE class, I believe. So, and also lead by example. Right? Students are highly impressionable and they seek out role models whose actions they really want to mirror. So it's important that you lead by example and inspire your students to be the best you can. So maybe you're creating something and you're showing them of what it looks like. I'm going to do it too. You know, this is not babyish. This is fun. This is an activity that we can all enjoy. So we have up here the sample of the student doing the video.
Next slide. All right, so another way to increase your students' level of engagement and participation is a check-in and check-out strategy. So this is just a creative way that you could connect with students online. So for, during the structure of your program, you can attempt to institute some sort of daily check-in using Google Forms. So you may want to also record a screencast video using either Loom or Screencastify of the day's agenda and share a calendar with both daily and weekly perspectives. But included in this slide are 2 Google Forms of examples of ways your students can do a check-in at the beginning of the day and a checkout at the end of the day. And this is a way for you to capture data on how your students are doing. And so I have hyperlinked the actual Google Forms in each of the images. So if you click on it, it'll actually ask you to make a copy of it so that you can save it on your Google Drive and make any changes to it if you'd like. But this is kind of what it looks like. This is the beginning of the day check-in. It has, the first and last name. How are you feeling? They included, the visuals, which are so important, right? If you have students that have difficulty reading and are not able to read that independently. At the bottom, there's also questions like, do you have anything to tell me? This can be about school or life. Where were you able to find all your work for today? So simple questions so that you can monitor students' progress and also students' emotional status, and have this data for your principal or for your, when you submit grades or when you have meetings. But this is just a simple way you could do that. And so again, there's a check-in and there's also a checkout that is also attached, and you'll be able to make a copy of that and save it to your Google Drive. Oh, I think I did the same, but I'll make sure I adjust that in a little bit.
So keeping regular routines is very, very important, right? And so it's providing multiple choices and expectations. Routines really eliminate power struggles and they help kids cooperate. So routines are a way to reduce stress and anxiety for everyone involved. We all know what comes next in a routine, right? We get warning for transitions and nobody feels pushed around. Routines will help kids learn to take charge of their own activities. Kids who feel more independent and are in charge of themselves have less time to rebel and be oppositional because they know what's expected. Routines help kids learn the concept of looking forward, right? I'm going to enjoy this because it's going to be something I'm looking forward to, which is a part of making accommodations. So any happy accommodation with the demands of a schedule, maybe a child wants to go to the playground, but he needs to learn that we always go to the playground at this time, and he can look forward to that experience. Routines help build connection moments. So going back to relationship building, we all know that we need to connect with our students, but little connection, but if you build in that connection in your routine, that ritual in your routine, it will become a habit and you'll find that you really get to know your students better. And of course, it's going to help maintain consistency. And if the expectations are the same, then the consistency will happen.
Yeah.
I've linked some documents on here. These are different schedules. These are free from Teacher Pay Teachers. And these schedules are ones that other teachers have created depending on your level, ability of your student or child. And something to really take note of, a lot of times parents really struggle with those routines at home. So even if you are informing parents of, hey, these are the routines we do in our school, and it's something you might want to hang up at home, that way you have that home to school connection.
Yeah, and Sherry, I think that just like in-person learning, if we have predictable structures, it makes our students feel stable and less anxious. Mm-hmm. And with everything that's going on, I think this is the least that we can do for them.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And looking at the next slide about a choice, right? Student choice is also very, very important. So if we're offering students different methods to demonstrate what they're learning through writing or media or, just how they demonstrate something, it really creates that ownership. And when we give choice, really consider ways that items are presented, right? So you want to make sure that there are no barriers for students. So if you're only giving one choice and a student really has a hard time with that choice, that's going to create a barrier. So giving multiple opportunities is really important. Making sure your deadlines and requirements are clear, but they're also flexible. I mean, we have to realize that, this is a different time. There are students in difficult home situations, And so that's where getting to know your student is really important, and knowing what's going on with them, even using those entrance tickets like Aurora was talking about in the last slide. And then also traditions. So if traditions existed in your classroom, keep them alive. Implement them into your remote learning environment. It might look a little different, but those kids, they enjoy those traditions. They look forward to them, right? So any consistency will really help reduce trauma and anxiety that all students are going through right now with the pandemic. And I want to just point out that here is another link on here. This is a hyperdoc. I call it the hyperdoc of hyperdocs. These are a whole bunch of different hyperdocs that link. Again, you make a copy and then you will have your own copy of this. But it's a link to a bunch of different hyperdocs that are already done. So many teachers out there have already created these, shared these with each other. And what's great about the teaching and learning community is everyone wants the students to learn. So at your own time, if you want to look through, different hyperdocs or how to even create your own hyperdoc, I encourage you to do that, because hyperdocs are another way of offering choice and giving opportunities to all students. The next slide is I'm showing you a Bitmoji classroom. Now this is a big rage right now, and one of the reasons is teachers are considering how printed text and pictures are displayed. They want to be able to bridge that in-person learning with the virtual learning. And what I do like about Bitmoji classrooms are the interactive elements. They allow students to click through in order to see assignments and documents and websites. If you look at the next slide, I did a quick little Bitmoji field trip for a kindergarten class. It's a Bitmoji field trip for a farm. But I've seen so many different ones for all age levels, all the way up to college even, where you have a library of resources. You can do virtual field trips. I've seen it where teachers for older students, middle school and high school, have kids set up their own Bitmoji locker, which talks about who they are, right? What are things that you would put in your locker and why? Maybe they could create their own Bitmoji classroom, or even a Bitmoji, tie it into history or tie it into language arts. Talk about the story setting, create the story setting from the story we're reading. So a lot of different options of student engagement with just using something like this as well.
So next we wanted to discuss attention spans. And I think that it's very important to consider these depending on the grade level that you're teaching and the age group that you are currently working with. It's really important to understand developmentally what a child's attention span is so that you can plan your instruction accordingly. So I have a quick chart here that lists the different attention spans for the different age in grade or age levels. And so children often struggle to pay attention, but especially when they're given a task that they view as challenging or hard, they're even more likely to give up before truly trying. So if you notice a student that is regularly losing focus during some of those challenging tasks, in the next slide, I've included a list of strategies that might help increase that attention span and improve the overall outcome of those tasks. And so some of these strategies are the following. So bringing creativity to non-preferred tasks. So each bullet has an image, which I've hyperlinked a resource. It could be a video, it could be an article. In this case, I have a quick video that talks about using platforms such as Minecraft education to help bring that creativity if you're working, with math and you see some students struggling with that. The next one is trying fidgets, and the image of the fidgets has a hyperlinked, I've hyperlinked an article from understood.org that explains the do's and don'ts of fidgets for kids. Another one is obviously checking in frequently with your students, and I've attached an article of ways you could do that. And obviously building those short breaks, especially when those the students are presented with tougher tasks or just more involved activities. I think that is a great strategy to build in those breaks, and I've attached a resource for that as well. It's also important that you have a balance between synchronous and asynchronous learning. We know that the benefits of synchronous learning is that, students can ask questions in real time. They also may be able to feel a greater sense of community and connection with their peers when they're all learning together. We know that students can become more engaged in learning and just feel a stronger sense of collaboration. And so one of the most useful aspects of learning asynchronously is having that ability to allow students to move at their own pace. And so even younger kids are able to do that if you provide them with asynchronous tasks that are, appropriate, and that are utilizing all of your students' attributes. So this slide contains just different tools that you can utilize to provide asynchronous instruction. And so we have Loom, we have Screencastify, Screencast-Matic, and Zoom. And it talks about just the different characteristics of each of those tools, whether, for example, the video length, whether you could record screen and or webcam, whether they're free or not. I believe it's in the next. It's there, right?
Oh, it's in the notes section if you're looking for the example.
Yes. So these are just different tools that you could utilize to record videos and provide asynchronous instruction for your students.
So like Aurora said, there is a video if you want to watch an example of an asynchronous example for kindergarten. It is there in the notes section for you to watch. So even as young as kindergarten can do this. In TK as well, I should say. Looking at the next slide, a lot of teachers use equity sticks, right? Which are, if you're not familiar, they're just a set of sticks, usually popsicle sticks or cards or something, which the names of individual students are written on them, right? And the teacher pulls it when choosing a student. That way, you can ensure that you're calling it everyone equally. Everyone has equal participation. I want to caution you though with equity sticks, because you need to make sure that you have a built-in anxiety relief for students who have a hard time with processing or do not like being called on the spot, or maybe they're selective mute or whatever it is. You want to have something built in. So whether it's think time, or they can pass and come back to me, or whatever it is, make sure you have that built in as well. Because we're not at school and have those cards and popsicle sticks, these are some online ideas that you could use. What my favorite is Flippity. I mean, there's so many out there, but Flippity is great because you can make a spinning wheel with all your students' names. You can, it has a group generator if you want random groups. No Hands is another one. Class Dojo and Class Craft, these are both like reward systems. It's a way to promote positive behaviors in the classroom, and then also communicate with parents between home and school. So there's an option for that as well.
And I believe Class Dojo also has a way to randomly select students for, different activities, just as Flippity does.
Nice.
So the next strategy that we want to discuss is, so when possible, we want you to allow for multiple means of expression based on your students' strengths instead of their weaknesses. So we want students to be able to, either record their responses instead of typing them, or maybe create a video instead of, writing, or just even using some sort of artistic representation. And so there's many virtual manipulatives that can replace those physical ones that are not available right now. And so here are some examples of digital ways you and your students can represent and express yourself. And so obviously utilizing digital timers, if you are using the Google platform, Google Classroom platform, you could use a Jamboard, which is a digital whiteboard, for you to express information, but also for your students to express what they know. Again, we discussed different Bitmoji classrooms, but this one actually, it's hyperlinked on ways that you could create a virtual Bitmoji classroom. So it gives you different tutorials and just ways and instructions on how to do that. That is what is hyperlinked here. And obviously, as many visuals and making that fun using GIFs or different, memes. You can also utilize that, having students create their own memes when they want to represent something that they're, something that you're discussing in your classroom.
So creating group work is also very important. It was important before distance learning, and it is still important. We want to encourage collaborative work between students. This is a powerful thing that can, build capacity skills in a number of ways. And it can also be problematic if students are not held accountable and if systems are not set up and in place. The nice thing about group work is that it really helps raise achievement for all students. It builds positive relationships and it helps create a learning community. And then it gives students, experiences that they really do still need for social, physiological, and cognitive development. So on this slide, there's lots of different ways to create groups, different ideas which you can use to make your group. But just importantly, it's really it's imperative that you are accessing the group dynamic during distance learning. So looking at groups with similar schedules is going to be very important. Making those norms, the link there on how to create group norms, making sure you have a framework and students have tasks when you're deciding how to communicate, right? Is make sure is it that you are going to be on at this time for the students to chat? Make sure that there is an adult in the room. It's very important. And then making sure you're checking in with these students to make sure that their questions are answered if they have any concern. And of course, multiple assessment options, making sure there's a lot of different ways for them to show their learning. The next slide shows remote team-based learning ideas. So taking on the idea of, okay, I want to do groups in my class. How can I do these teams, right? So I've listed several ways that you can do teams together, but the idea is that you're increasing student engagement, right? You're having authentic assessment of learning. You're continuing the instruction with clear organization of materials and accessibility. And really, this is going to eliminate the what do I do now? So breaking into small groups, using Zoom or Hangout, differentiating assignments and classwork, having a co-teacher there if possible, and then, or, even having live lessons and using station teaching at any age on Zoom or on Google Hangout or whatever platform you do use is an option as well.
So the last strategy that we wanted to discuss is using online tools to support student reflections and also providing your students with as many assessment opportunities. So technology has really given us many tools that can enable our students to respond in a variety of ways. So, from student response platforms like Kahoot, which is listed here, we have quizzes. In the next slide, we have Edpuzzle and Pear Deck, and I've hyperlinked additional free resources on this link. These two slides just give you a basic description of each of those tools, but the goal here is for you to be able to provide as many options for students to demonstrate their understanding and also to experience success. We want to give them choices in how they can express what they know, because we know that all of our students come with attributes. They all have different strengths and weaknesses, and we want to make sure that we highlight their strengths. And we know that by providing multiple opportunities for them to show their learning, they're going to experience success, and it's going to lead into them becoming an expert learner, which is what we all hope that our students can become. And so we've included those 5 different online tools that you could use, and feel free to explore these at a different time. For time's sake, we're not able to go over each of these tools, but these are kind of the top 5 tools that we've researched that are easy to use, that students enjoy, and that you can use with a different range of grade levels. And again, we've hyperlinked additional free resources that you could explore at a later time as well. So that is all of our sessions. So we hope that your understanding of ways to engage your students during distance learning has increased. We really appreciate you signing up for this session, and we hope to see you again soon.
Thank you so much.